Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Miles Ponder, and I'd like to welcome members of the public, colleagues and officers to this meeting. I'm chairing tonight's meeting and to manage a business as efficiently as possible and invite people to speak one at a time to ensure their contributions are properly heard. Therefore, please do not speak unless invited to do so by me. Thank you in advance for your assistance. The fire evacuation procedure, I won't go through that. I think everybody's aware of that. So we'll go straight to agenda item 1, which is the membership, and there are no changes. Agenda item 2 is communications and apologies. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Bright, Councillor Lambert and Councillor Smith. I'd like to welcome Kipps Green, who is the Service Manager for Hertfordshire County Council Services for Young People, and he'll be presenting item 5, and Paul Sawyer, who's the Head of Environmental Health Licensing for item 6. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Any members have any interest to declare? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, really, I'm a town councillor at Hertsmere Borough Town Council, and we do pay monies towards the enforcement officers. So I just want to make that as a declaration anyway. Thank you.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you very much. Agenda item 4 is the minutes. So the minutes of the meeting on the 10th of November 2025 approved as a correct record. Thank you. I'll sign those after.
Mr. Chairman, I've just had a notification from Paul Morris. He's running a bit late due to traffic.
Okay.
But he will be here shortly.
Okay. Agenda item 5, which is the Hertfordshire County Council Services for Young People. This can be presented by Kipps Green. It's to receive an update from Hertfordshire County Council Services for Young People. It's the annual report for the 2024-2025 academic year, which is attached in our briefings covering individual terms are also enclosed in appendices A, B and C. I'd like to welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, councillors. So my name is Kipps Green. I'm one of the service managers for Hertfordshire County Council Services for Young People. And just to remind colleagues, councillors, that we provide a termly report each term that provides a report about the services that we provide at Services for Young People and detailed information about specifically what's happening in Hertsmere. What I'm going to cover this evening is just an outline of what I've provided in the last 3 terms reports, but do welcome any questions that you may well have. So as a reminder, Hertfordshire County Council Services for Young People is the primary provider of youth work, independent careers, education, information, advice and guidance, work-related learning and work experience to young people in Hertfordshire. The service is a key contributor to the prevention and early help agenda, including Hertfordshire County Council's aim of supporting young people to make a successful transition to an economical, independent adult life. The service delivers targeted prevention and early intervention work to ensure that young people get the help that they need early and to reduce the necessity for higher cost specialist interventions. It enables young people to succeed by providing high quality informal education opportunities to promote their personal and social development. Services for Young People supports young people who are challenged in education, their communities or home life to ensure a successful transition to adulthood. I'm just going to go over some of the highlights that we've had this year in terms of the service. So Services for Young People retained the Matrix standard accreditation, affirming high quality career, education, information, advice and guidance provision and innovation approaches such as Young People's Centres and the Recruitment Hub. There's positive feedback from young people and partners, highlighted improvements in confidence, resilience and life skills. Some of the youth engagement and events I will now go on to talk about. So just only recently, we celebrated the Young People's Awards, and we celebrated 163 young people county-wide, including 39 from Hertsmere, for resilience and personal development. It was a fantastic event. We had, as I've said, we had 39 young people from Hertsmere attend with their parents and carers. We had counsellors from Watford in attendance and Three Rivers. We had fantastic feedback from them and from their parents. For a lot of these young people, this is the one chance they get to be celebrated. A lot of these young people aren't attending school and aren't necessarily recognised. So for those young people, it was a fantastic event. Other events include the big get-together, which brought SEND young people, the SEND Youth Council and over 200 young people for sessions on mental health, resilience and creative expression. And Services for Young People also hosted the Teacher and Advisor Conference in June 2025, and that was hosted at the University of Hertfordshire, and it focused on careers guidance, inclusive work experience and adapting to the evolving labour market needs. So some detail just about the work that we have provided, so the targeted support. So the CME work, which is children missing from education. So in the autumn term, we supported 61 young people. In the spring term, we supported 14 young people to re-engage back into school. And during that term, there was ongoing support for 27 young people. And in the summer term, most recent term I'm talking about, there was 19 young people supported back into education and 31 ongoing support. We also support care leavers, so supported through CV workshops and wellbeing events and at our hubs. We also support electively home educated young people. In the autumn, we supported directly with 15 young people. In the spring term, 12 young people, and in the summer term, 15 young people. And I should say these are young people from Hertsmere. Moving on to education, employment and training, which we refer to as EAT. So I'm just going to talk about the NEAT, which is not in education, employment and training, and not known numbers. So in autumn, we supported 72 NEAT young people. In spring, 76, and in summer, 82. In Hertfordshire, the NEAT rate improved to 2.59, and the target being 2.9. I do have some Hertsmere specific figures here that I can go into if anyone is interested. Perhaps I'll do that at the end with questions. Moving on to our Pathways to Success programme, so ongoing support for NEAT young people with SEND needs and those that are children looked after. 17 of those were supported across the terms. Our Employment Pathways project supported 16 young people in the autumn term, 19 in the spring term, and in the summer, the year two of that programme launched with additional 5 sign-ups. Another highlight was the recruitment hub, which was set up on our website to streamline access to education, employment and training opportunities. In terms of youth work, a few projects just to highlight. Our Positive Pathways projects in Boreham Woods engage with young people at risk of ASB and exploitation through sport, cooking and life skills. Our emotional wellbeing projects improve confidence and resilience, reducing self-harm incidents and promoting healthy coping strategies. And another personal highlight here was our SEND Youth Council, which amplified the young voices, focusing on mental health, healthy relationships and community safety. Moving on to work experience and careers, over 1,000 placements were marketed in 2025. Partnerships with employees and visits to Warner Brothers and major industry sites. In the summer term, 160 Hertswood students completed placements with the sports leader course delivering a level 2 qualification, and careers sessions hosted at Sky Studios and Airbus supporting teachers and apprenticeship pathways. The Duke of Edinburgh Award is also on offer in Hertsmere. It's delivered across Watford, Three Rivers and Hertsmere for SEND young people, electively home educated young people and children missing education, as well as young people that are vulnerable. Participants developed in resilience and independence through expeditions and volunteering. In summary, Services for Young People Hertsmere has demonstrated strong performance in supporting vulnerable young people, reducing NEET rates and delivering high quality youth work and career guidance. Key priorities for the coming year will be expanding inclusive work experience opportunities, strengthening mental health and wellbeing support, continuing to reduce NEET and not known figures, and enhancing collaboration with schools, employers and the community partners. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant, thank you. Does any members have any questions? Councillor Nicholas.
I can make it work, press the right button. Thanks very much for your report, Kips. I have got a question just regarding children missing from education. I'm the VORG member champion for Hertsmere Borough Council, and a recent visit that I made to one of our refuges, can you hear me all right? We were talking about children missing for education because they suddenly find themselves in refuge. Can you tell me from those numbers how many of those children are being picked up from refuge? Because it struck me that there was quite a big gap in some cases between them being moved into emergency accommodation for safety and then being picked up by, they may have been uplifted from the school they were in and moved into our area, and then being picked up for schooling. And obviously that's a big issue for any child that's around exam age. Big gaps in education tend to project future for them if they've missed a lot of school. So
Yes.
I'd just be interested to know what the schemes are around that and how we're making that work so that they get back into education as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. So any young person that is missing education, any young person in Hertsmere or in Hertfordshire that is missing education will be referred into Services for Young People. We're working with years 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 in our service. So regardless of where they are in the community, they will be allocated to us and we would work with them. It is voluntary participation with those young people. We've got great youth workers allocated to them to work with them to break down those barriers, start building on some of the issues that those young people are facing in terms of why they're not going to school. So we build on that and then we work with the wider Hertfordshire County Council in terms of school participation workers, finding those young people a school place. But our role as Services for Young People is to get those young people school ready.
Thanks for that. Do you know roughly then, because it strikes me for a lot of these children it's not a choice not to be in school, it's maybe because mum can't travel with them to the area because it's not safe to do so. How long on average, do you know how long on average children may be in a situation where they're not able to access any schooling?
I think each young person will be individual. It'd be dependent on their needs and what the issues they're facing. It may well be if a young person has moved into the area, finding that young person a school place. If there's special educational needs, again, there may be some sort of delay finding a school place. Or it could be those personal and social issues that the young person is facing and the reasons why they're not going to school. So there may well be a school place, but the issue being maybe emotional well-being. In terms of numbers and finding out those numbers, I would need to go away and come back to you with some numbers. I do believe I provided some details because I was unable, I should say apologies, that I was unable to come to the last meeting, and I think I followed up with some detail at the last meeting. So I think a similar question was asked.
It was probably me.
Thank you. So I hope you got that information I provided.
I did. I think I've got a background in education and it hugely concerns me that we know that as soon as the children are not in school for any length of time and there are other things going on in the background, that is a predictor of their future achievement in many cases. And I think it's really important, and I'm really keen to see how tight we are around this in supporting these children and what we're doing to help the schools to support those children that are out of education. There's often fantastic teachers in schools that are really willing to put packs together and stuff to get out to the children, but it's knowing that there is a mechanism for that really works really, really well. Otherwise, we're really failing them through no fault of their own.
No, absolutely, and I agree. It limits the young person's life chances, absolutely, and we have to work with them at the earliest possible opportunity. I agree.
I'd be interested to talk to you about it offline if we may then.
Absolutely, I welcome that, Councillor.
Councillor Quilty, you had a question.
I do. It's following on really to a certain extent. I mean, the CME here in Hertsmere, you've explained some of the numbers, but I'm wondering if you could give us a broad brush view over the last, say, 3 years as to how that sort of cohort are doing compared with their statistical neighbours. Now, you might want to look at this. I'm happy to get it on an email sometime if you want to, and bounce it back to you as well, because I think I'm trying to gauge whether we are doing as a cohort better or worse than our statistical neighbours.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm talking there, I'm talking about sort of the Welwyn, Hatfield, Broxbourne, whichever, Three Rivers, you'd have a good idea yourself. And just to see if we, it's not saying there's anyone who's doing anything wrong or whatever, or you're not doing anything wrong or right, but it's just trying to pick up, is there a trend here which maybe has established itself in COVID, and it's just a devil to get out of it. It could be simple as that.
Yeah.
But it'd be really good to hear it back from you, maybe, as a professional in this field.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
I would need to come back to you on those numbers.
Yeah.
From what I do know is that numbers are roughly equal across Hertfordshire in terms of young people missing education in terms of the districts and boroughs.
That's at the moment, but has that been the same in the last 3 years?
I
mean, and not now. You don't need to answer it now.
Thank you.
Maybe
Councillor.
if you go through, if you drop it through the officers, and then they can circle it round to everyone, because it's something that we're all interested in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Before going on to the next member's question, I've got sort of a follow-on question from that as well while we're on the topic. So on a target to support children missing from education, over the spring and summers, the numbers are obviously, people are re-engaging. How are you getting children to re-engage over the spring and summer? It's just a question.
So how do we actually do the process? So thank you for the question. So young people are, it's the CME work is almost like a big machine. So it comes to, we are allocated from Hertfordshire County Council within the services. So services for young people are allocated young people 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They're then allocated to a youth worker, so a dedicated youth worker, and that youth worker will reach out to that young person and their family to say, we understand, we know that you are a child missing education, you are off role at school. We are here to support you, provide you with support to get you back into school. Now, the first point is, what is stopping you from being at school? And it may well be, it could have been a bullying episode, it could be mental health, it could be the fact that they've just moved into the area and there's no school place. It could be a number of reasons. So as a youth worker, they will use all the skill that they have, all their experience, to draw that out of the young person, and sometimes the family members as well, to really find out what the issues are, work with that young person for a period of time, get a school place, so we'll be working with Hertfordshire County Council colleagues alongside, get a school place ready, ensure that that young person is ready, and then we will transition them back into school, and we will then support them when they're back in school as well.
Thank you. Councillor Kazal, I think you had a question next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kipps, for your presentation. It's just generally encouraging that young children, young people, are engaging so much overall with youth programs and so on, and we've seen all the case studies. Quick question regarding work experience. I see that there are certain sectors that obviously the County Council is engaged in and so on, but do we have any data in terms of trends of which sectors the young people are interested in? Are there any sectors that's more appealing than others? And second part to it is, as a County Council, is there any sector that you'd like young people to venture into, and then you haven't made the kind of steps to approach those companies? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So Again, I can come back with you with that precise data, but for me, construction is always a key work experience for young people, what young people are telling us they'd like. There is childcare as well, is a big part of work experience, and childcare, industry, and sort of beauty, hair and beauty is also another key sort of work experience opportunity that young people tend to ask for. In terms of where young people have gone in the last year, I can come back and provide you with that data.
And my second question was in terms of what the county council would like to do in terms of any. So I'm thinking more of, with AI and digitalization and so on, that coming, that's becoming more part of young people's lives. Is that something that you're actively looking into proceeding?
In terms of work experience, we look for all range of different providers, and I think the issue that we've had post-COVID is that we've seen a drop in employers wanting to provide work experience. If I'm completely honest, there's some huge retailers have dropped off of the market and no longer providing work experience. I think AI for all of us is going to be huge. I think it's important that young people know what that means and all the different career paths that could lead to. So yeah, it's absolutely something that we're aware of. But in terms of work experience, it's always driven by the young person. But it's absolutely important that we're aware of those needs as well, and the change in landscape.
Councillor Nicholas.
Occurs to me. Fair access protocol to places in schools. I'm assuming that children that find themselves in refuge, being the most vulnerable, would come under that categorisation, and therefore you'd be working to a 20-day turnaround to find them an allocation.
Yeah.
And that's notwithstanding that they may not take up that allocation because of other issues.
Yes.
How close or far are we from those kind of numbers?
Yeah, I have to give my apologies. I would need to check that. Yeah, apologies.
I'm just going to ask one more question, if that's okay. Again, you might not know the answer off the top of your head, but you talked about the Youth Engagement and Events of Young People's Awards, and that Hertsmere had 39 young people who received those awards, so it's about a quarter of the young people. Is it split fairly evenly across Hertfordshire?
Yeah, so youth workers and our advisors are welcome to submit nominations for young people. So each team is asked about their nominations throughout the year, and Hertsmere team really was well represented, gave lots of nominations, and we were fortunate in terms of the venue in which we were hosting the awards, that we could have a large number of young people. So in some areas they may have lower nominations in terms of their venue size, but it's roughly split.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? In that case, is the committee happy to note the report? Yeah, that's notable. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move forward to agenda item 6, which is the Community Enforcement Service Review. And this is presented by Paul Sawyer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We're coming back after, we've said a year of sort of full operation. It's obviously a little more than that, just because of the timing of the meetings, but we've certainly given the service a period to bed in. I think last time I spoke with you, I did explain that we'd set the team up with quite a broad range of potential activities that they would be involved in. I think we've honed them down to some extent to the things that are being requested most, and they tend to fall into the category of fly tipping investigation and work around waste with businesses and so on, but also some work around antisocial behaviour and general engagement with the public, businesses, shops and so on, and visitors to the area, to form a sort of one-stop shop out and about to give some reassurance to the public that the council is there for them, and the officers can act as conduit for people that need access to our services. There was some criticism in the initial stages that we didn't have specific KPIs and performance indicators set, and that was deliberately done to make sure that we could identify what those would need to be going forwards. I think we've consolidated that now, and this report that I brought before you has a bit more detail on performance indicators. So if we run through them briefly, we've identified a target in relation to the response to fly tipping notifications. I'm pleased to say that we're achieving over 90% by the next working day. I mean, actually a lot of them are done on the same working day, but certainly over 90% the following day, and the remainder are done within the day or so after that. So that's a very positive response, and we're able to do that obviously because we've got the larger team. Traditionally we only had probably one person delivering this type of activity, and they were doing other things as well. So the team has really allowed us to be able to get people out on the street, get boots on the ground, and have a proper look at fly tipping. The other thing that we've actually recently adopted is that we will also have an active interest in fly tipping on private land, which isn't necessarily stuff that we as a council can remove, but the team, because we've got the additional resources, are able to go and investigate and look through it for evidence and so on, and then contact the landowners to try and encourage them to remove it if it's something that needs to be removed. So that's something additional. We've recently tweaked the customer services call flow to account for that. Traditionally, they would tell people, sorry, it's on private land, we won't be able to deal with it, but we are now giving them a different journey. We're saying, okay, we won't be able to collect it, but we will pass it to the team for investigation. And I understand that that's not the case in every borough, because quite a lot of them are not getting involved in private land fly tipping at all these days. So that's a positive as far as I'm concerned. Moving on, we've got obviously the issue of fixed penalty notices, and again this has gone up dramatically from the service we had prior to the team being started. We were probably only issuing less than 10 a year. We're now into some much more substantial numbers. I think in the first few months, or the first 12 months from when we actually set the team up, they did around 60. So far this financial year, we're up to, I think the report says 37. I think we're actually nearer 40 now. They're coming in every few days, and those are spread across 3 different offence types. The Section 33 is the traditional fly tipping. Section 34 of the same Act is in relation to what we call duty of care. So that's where people have encouraged somebody to take away their waste without going through the proper checks. That's ended up fly tipped, and we will serve a fixed penalty notice on the originator, particularly if they're not able or willing to provide the details of the person that's actually taken the waste, because they do have that obligation. And the third ticket is around littering, which is a sort of a lesser fine, but that's the one we would impose for small quantities of waste deposited as an alternative. The other fact which I haven't put on here is that of those fixed penalty notices that are served in Hertsmere, we are getting a payment rate of close to 100%. Almost everyone is paid, and they're actually normally paid within the first period, which means from our point of view we don't get so much money out of them, but it does mean that people are responding quickly and paying within sort of first 14 days. When we compare ourselves with other boroughs, I had some statistics from our colleagues over at Barnet recently, and their response rate is running, it has been as low as 40-something%, but it is running about 60% at the moment. And actually, their fine structure is not dissimilar to ours. They're not charging a lot more, but they are finding it more difficult to get the money in. So I think we're demonstrating that we're serving them when they're appropriate, and we've clearly got sufficient evidence that people don't feel that they want to chance it and take their day in court. There's also been some discussion around whether the sort of fine structure is correct, and again, comparing to other Hertfordshire authorities, we do have. We're beginning to sort of fall slightly behind, and it's our proposal to do a review of the levels of fine that we've got set at the moment, and it'll probably result in a modest increase. We do have to be careful that we don't put them up too high, because anecdotally from authorities that have done that, it does tend to result in people deciding that they don't want to pay the fixed penalty notice. They would rather take their chance in court. And of course the problem from our point of view is, one, that means there's a lot more time spent in preparing case and legal costs and so on and so forth. And then ultimately, if the person is found guilty and fined, that money goes to the public purse rather than coming to Hertsmere as a fixed penalty notice. So we would prefer to reserve our court action for cases where there is a clear aggravating factor. So, for example, the most recent case that we prosecuted, the chap, it's been quite well advertised, the chap was actually a registered waste carrier, and from our point of view, he should have known better. The public were expecting to trust him, but he actually fly tipped the waste. So that was a clear case where we thought it was appropriate to take to court and make use of the publicity surrounding the case. But in terms of how much that cost us, we didn't get the full amount of costs that we asked for in court. His fine actually wasn't that high, and this is the problem when you put things before the magistrates. They can vary. I mean, if you recall, a few years ago we took a prosecution against a fly tipper, and we had to record fine well over £20,000. So there's no guarantee. So we would much rather have a fixed penalty rate which people will accept, they will pay. We get the money to go towards the enforcement efforts, and they get a salutary lesson, hopefully. So moving on, we've got some figures around the duty of care visits. Now, these are something that's an ongoing process. So we visit premises in the borough that have waste needs. So whether it's a retail shop or other types of business, and we're checking for the paperwork that they have to demonstrate that they're using a proper waste contractor and that they are disposing of the waste in the correct manner. The reality is, people might have a contract one day, you go a few months later and, you know, money's been tight and they've cancelled the contract and, you know, they're doing something else with the waste. So hence we're going to places on a regular basis. Certainly we try and hit the main premises on an annual basis to check for that. The cameras, the wildlife cameras that we use across the borough are a very useful resource, particularly in the rural areas. And what we've been doing is we put up signage advising that there are CCTV cameras in the vicinity. We don't have arrows showing people where they are, but they are there, and the evidence from those cameras can quite often, you know, lead to a prosecution or a fixed penalty notice being issued. The main constraining factor on the use of the cameras is the fact that obviously they've got a limited battery life and they've got limited memory storage, which means they've got to be visited from time to time to check both of those things and to download any images that might have been captured that can lead to you know, further investigations. So I've given some statistics there as to the general areas where the cameras are being sited, but we do move them around all the time, and we're focusing on places where fly tipping is occurring, so we're very responsive with them. They're very, you know, easily mobile. Unfortunately, too mobile sometimes, and they do get stolen, even though we try and secrete them up trees and up lampposts and things like that. I've also produced some statistics there about the daily patrols. Obviously, the team is only 4 people. You know, they undertake patrols every day, but they're not just doing that. They're doing all these other things we've talked about. But I've tried to give a flavour of the number of visits they've done in the various towns. Obviously, we've heard that the town council in Bournemouth and Elstree here have provided some additional funding, and there is an expectation that they will spend a slightly higher proportion of time in the conurbation, and in reality that's not a difficult one to achieve, because we do find that we do have more hotspot issues in and around Bournemouth and Elstree anyway, so they would naturally be spending more time here than maybe in some of the other parts of the borough. But nonetheless, we do make sure that they do regular patrols in every town and village. And obviously, there's a lot of time spent in the rural areas in between, you know, particularly looking at the fly tipping side of things. I mentioned about the prosecutions and so on. As I say, because of the time and the cost involved in mounting prosecutions, we will restrict those to the most serious cases, or for example cases where somebody might be found guilty of fly tipping and fixed penalties served on, you know, numerous occasions. Touch wood, we don't seem to have had that too often so far, but clearly if somebody hasn't taken taken notice of having a fixed penalty notice served on them, you know, they may be a suitable candidate for moving it up to a prosecution. Since I last presented, the team have now completed their community safety accreditation, which gives them some additional powers. It's an accreditation scheme run by Hertfordshire Police, so they've got extra badges and so on that go with that, and as I say, some additional powers. They also go through the police vetting process, so they're sort of fully up and running in terms of that scheme, and as a result of that, we felt it appropriate to give them more of our powers, so you know they can now technically serve the fixed penalty notices and sign them themselves. Although we would always, you know, do that as a considered approach. We don't give them tickets to go out and serve when they're out and about, because that would just potentially put them into more confrontational situations than we particularly need. So they will gather the information, and then the fixed penalty notices would be served from the office. So the other big side of the team's work is what we might call engagement, and that is I've listed under item 7 a whole plethora of things that they're involved in. Some of them are just one-offs, some of them are regular things, but the thing is that they are getting involved in a whole range of other activities around the borough involving lots of different agencies, community groups, and so on and so forth. We've been able to deploy them at very short notice when issues have occurred. So, for example, the recent incident in Bushy, we were able to provide some visible patrols in the High Street just as a reassurance. We were able to respond after the Manchester synagogue attack and provided some additional patrols around our local synagogues, and we were represented at the vigil that was held in the Boulevard, and things like the Mayor's Peace Walk and various other issues, things that have come up. We're able to send them out, and not just during the working day. We attend evening functions. We recently had one of the team presented at the Borough Youth Council's annual meeting, and that was very well received. So we forged some good links there. I think that's probably all I need to say at this stage, apart from to invite questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Butler.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I've got a list of questions, but I'll only ask you 2 for the moment, see what other councillors ask, and then I can come back. One around the littering section. Does dog poo come under that at all? And if so, has any fixed penalties been enacted on that? And 2, on this report, I can't see actually how much is a fixed penalty. Is there, what's the total? And is there different pricing for different type of thing? Can you give us some figures, please? That'd be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, dog poo does. It's not normally done under littering. What we've got, and this is when I presented a similar report to the Policy Review Committee a couple of weeks ago, we did discuss this in terms of one of the areas that we've still to develop is the public space protection orders, which we did have in the borough a few years ago. They naturally lapse after every 3 years, and at the time, I think it was during the pandemic, they didn't get refreshed. So we are getting to the stage of refreshing those. They carry their own offences, so dog fouling is done through that, and I would certainly expect that the CEOs will be the ones that are out there gathering that evidence for those. There's a couple of other dog-related offences around there, which, for example, getting dogs on leads if directed to do so. We're also considering introducing a new one, which will be maximising the number of dogs that one person can have control of at any one time, which is aimed at dissuading people, maybe walking a dozen dogs, professional dog walkers, because obviously they would find it, I suspect, rather difficult to keep an eye on all of the dogs in terms of dog poo and in terms of their behaviour and other users of the open space that they're in. So that's an area that is on the to-do list. We're hoping that we'll get there. There's consultation process we have to go through, and we have to demonstrate there's still a demand for it. So that is in hand. In terms of in terms of the actual fine rates, sort of the fine figures for the section 33 and 34, so that's fly tipping and the duty of care. Our current one is £300, but it is reduced to £200 if they're paid within the first 14 days. In terms of the littering, it's 75, knocked down to 50 if they pay quickly. Now, as I say, we are going to be going through a process to review those fine rates and compare them. There are a couple of boroughs in Hertfordshire that have got that rate, but most have crept up a bit from there. Some are maybe 100 more than that. Some have gone a little bit higher. But in general terms, there is a move upwards. The maximum is actually now £1,000. It was changed a couple of years ago. But as I mentioned to you before, if you impose a £1,000 fine, you'd find a lot more people would probably refuse to pay the fine and take their day in court. So I think somewhere in between is probably a suitable place to land it. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just very quickly on the back of that, there was firstly remiss of me, I should have said Councillor Gray had intended to be here tonight, but he's unwell. He's obviously the portfolio holder for this area. Secondly, just on dog fouling, it's incredibly hard to actually issue an FPN. If one of the officers witnessed an owner not picking up after their dog, they would then challenge the owner, and the owner would most likely pick it up rather than incur the fine. But yeah, the trick is working out the habits of the dog owners, because they are quite regular, and if you can work out when they go out to take their, because it only takes one or two to make an area tricky.
Councillor Quilty.
You mentioned about the Manchester situation outside the synagogue, and you referred to a number of sort of synagogues and patrols that our community enforcement team are carrying out. And if I recall rightly, that the leader of the council announced that he was putting X number of pounds into this particular area as well. So I wonder if you could identify, tell us how this is going to manifest itself in reality. Now, bearing in mind that that I understand outside each synagogue, the Community Security Trust, the CST, actually sort of patrol and do good works outside synagogues, right? They're trained, right? Now, are our enforcement officers trained to the same level that the CST are trained? And if so, who trains them? Because there must be an insurance issue here if you sort of send people out to defend something, because this is quite a serious issue for these areas, that we need to know that they are fully capable of doing their job, and are they fully trained?
Thank you, Councillor. The short answer is no. They're not SIA trained. They're not door supervisors. They haven't got that in their armoury. The patrols that I mentioned were reassurance patrols in the vicinity of synagogues as an immediate reaction to the heightened concerns of the public. I don't intend that they are something that will continue permanently. As you quite rightly say, the CST do have a number of fully trained staff in and around synagogues to carry out that more direct security piece. And I think the reference to the leader, talking about additional funding, was for something that they're providing, not our team. So that was a slightly different matter. So no, they're not supposed to be replacing either the police or the fully trained staff that the synagogues have available. But it was a reassurance piece in the vicinity.
Thank you. If I can come back just with one comment more than question, and I suppose it is that it's very interesting, and it's great that they're there, I suppose, giving a high-profile sort of view, but it does present a problem as well for themselves as individuals, because they're not trained, and I wonder, should we be promoting the fact that they are visiting the areas for community I don't know what you call it, whatever you want to call it, but not for any security purposes. I think you've got to be very clear here, and I think the leader would have to be very clear, saying that whilst they are patrolling or walking around the synagogues or whatever around the area in Bushy, in Radlett, in Potters Bar, wherever, Shenley, they are not there in any shape or form to do any form of security. That's the bit I'm saying. In other words, saying that they are community protection enforcement officers or whatever you want to call them, that's a misleading the residents around the synagogues who are very worried at this time.
Yeah, I mean, they do have training. As I mentioned earlier, they have the the police accreditation training, which it does include things like personal safety and that sort of thing, how to deal with people, how to gain information from people. And in fact, some of the additional powers they have are the power to require name and address, and so on and so forth. What I'm saying is that they aren't necessarily there to replace people who are specifically there purely for security. So they do have those elements in their armoury, and obviously when they're patrolling and they're speaking to perpetrators, they do make use of those powers. They carry body cameras and so on and so forth. They have a radio that links to the police control room. So they have got those things in their armoury. But what I was saying previously is that we haven't got the resources to task them to routinely act as security at venues of any description. Thank you, Chair.
If I can just amplify that a little as well. So I think the grant that you mentioned was a grant to the CST from the council. So that was a contribution directly to the CST. At times of heightened community risk and tension, what we're saying is that these staff resource can be deployed to those particular areas just to provide a further visible presence, which, as Paul says, does have the CAS training, has body-worn cameras, has a direct route into police, and so it's more very visible, eyes and ears on the ground, that can just add to some reassurance for residents when there is heightened tensions.
Thank you. Can I just come back a second then? I think it's great, but I do feel that they should also be trained to the CST level, so that they are sort of doing a meaningful job. But can I ask also, are these 4 people, are they acting as our traffic wardens as well? No? There's extras?
No, confusingly, the civil enforcement officers, who have the same 3-letter abbreviation, but they're the ones that work for our parking services team, and they're the ones that are specifically out there doing the sort of parking enforcement. So they are different. Our ones wear red, and the others wear, I don't know, dark blue or black.
Maybe we need a report on those so we know how many there are. Councillor Kazar.
Thanks, Chair. 3 questions from me then. Paul, thank you for your presentation. Just looking at the flight tipping response and so on, it's quite good that we're managing to tackle the number of flight tipping responses that we can, with obviously the amount of staff that we have. But just looking generally in terms of what these 4 people have to do, in terms of, duty of care visits and flight tipping and then community engagement and so on. I'm just wondering, do you think if they're stretched too thin, and if any discussion has been, if there's any discussion regarding any additional resource being employed maybe in the future? That was question one. Second was particularly in terms of camera deployment. Do we know any figures of how many have been prosecuted and prosecuted and fined just using that system of using the camera deployment? And third one was under 7.1. It says, this is item D, officers join police and licensing colleagues to inspect licensing premises in and around Boreham Wood. So any results of that in terms of how it went, and any feedback? Thank you.
So in response to the first one, the extra resources, I'd love to be able to have more. Obviously, it's the finances are the difficult thing. I'd have to say that at the moment, our biggest pinch point is having the back office support. So, for example, the team are out there gathering information, gathering intelligence. But if we want to serve more fixed penalty notices, we probably need some more resources in our back office. So before we see extra red jackets out on the streets, we probably need an extra person helping Chris, who's the team supervisor, who's outside of. So his role was really what our response to fly tipping and so on was before we got the team in. So he's now supervising them. He's the one that's preparing the evidence for court and so on and so forth. Now, as I mentioned, we have empowered the team to do that themselves, but it's a difficult balancing act. We'd rather have them out on the streets than preparing paperwork back in the office, but somebody needs to do that. So I think if we were going to look for additional resources, the first place would be to bolster up the back office team. Secondly, in terms of how many offences are identified on the cameras, I don't actually have that off the top of my head. I can certainly ask the team to put those figures together for you, but I would say that a good sort of 60 or 70% of the offences that we identify are probably derived from information from the cameras, particularly if they're the fly tipping offences, because obviously when you're doing a duty of care offence, you can get information from the waste, maybe an address or something like that, and without any additional information, that would be the person that you would potentially take the FPN against. Whereas if you've caught somebody on camera, the likelihood is that they're the fly tipper. So I would say that the majority of the fly tipping offences that we serve FPNs for are probably camera derived. Either that, or they're from maybe a member of the public's information, or cameras from people's own businesses and homes and so on, which we can use from time to time. And then finally, the link with the licensing team, So they visited a number of licensed premises. I think I did report. I don't know if Adam reported it at licensing, but we basically didn't find any major problems in the ones that we'd visited. But that was the first one. We're going to do some more in the new year. Thank you, Chair.
I just wanted to make a quick comment on the back of cameras, because that camera detection rate's very high and unusual. Normally, a lot of the fly tip evidence is from evidence within the fly tip. So people have left their name and address on their Amazon packages and that kind of stuff. But I think the particular value of cameras is keeping the fly tippers guessing. So they are probably more a deterrent than they are a detection tool. and particularly when we think of our rural roads, that's why our approach is to explicitly sign, we have to sign that we have cameras in use anyway. That's part of the legislation around the use of CCTV, but we make those signs, as those big yellow and black signs, as clear as we can, so that fly tippers are thinking, well, actually, I'm not going to stop here. I'll go somewhere else where I'm less likely to get caught. So they can, I think, target hardening is as important as to tackling fly tipping as the enforcement side. So if we can design out or deter people from fly tipping in our borough, that's a really good approach. And I think the team again has been incredibly critical in getting this done, because there is no substitute for those boots on the ground who, as well as putting the cameras up, they move the signs around, and then they'll come and say to me and Paul, we've run out of signs because someone's nicked them all, and can we have some more, and all that sort of stuff.
Councillor Nicholas.
Thank you, Paul, for your report. And first thing I wanted to say was thank you for the contact that I've had with the officers. They've been amazing. And one particular lady member of your team has been fantastic over the last couple of weeks in things that she's attended and joined in with, and been really proactive in the things that she's been doing around the women's safety walks. I've been really, really impressed. So, my congratulations to her and to the rest of the team. They've been really quick on fly tipping things in Bushy. They've been amazing. Two things. It strikes me, and I think I'm right in saying that if you take a van into a Hertfordshire County Council tip, and it's a commercial vehicle, which I imagine a lot of these people purporting to be waste collectors have vans that look like commercial vehicles, you have to pay something like £225 per tonne or something for mixed waste. It strikes me that it might think, well, it's cheaper for me to fly tip it than it is for me to go to the dump, even if I get caught and I get the fine. Do we take that into the account? Because I think you said £200 if they pay it within 14 days. If it's less than the cost of going to the tip, maybe we're missing a trick there. And the second one was the lay-by on the A41. I've driven past it a few times in the last fortnight. I know we've banked it up. It doesn't seem to have done the trick. Are we reviewing? There's piles of stuff now at the side of it, and the lorries and big vehicles now stop in the middle of the road, or at the side of the road, causing a bit of an obstruction. So I'm not sure whether it's worked as well as we hoped it might, and what review is in regarding that, because it looks pretty awful again at the moment.
Yeah, let's just take the things in order. Firstly, thank you for your feedback. I will feed back to Sarah. So Sarah is one of our most experienced officers, in that she was actually a PCSO for many years before she joined us. So she's brought a wealth of information, and she is very good at that engagement piece particularly. So, but thank you, and I'll feed that back to the team in general. The second question was about. Yes. Well, as I say, we don't have control on how much commercial waste disposal costs. That's obviously a commercial thing, and as I mentioned earlier, we are seriously considering reviewing upwards the FPN rates. I think if we got somebody who was clearly routinely commercially fly tipping, that might be an aggravating factor for them being moved up to being a prosecution rather than just a fixed penalty notice. Certainly if they had already received one and continue to do it. I noticed that a couple of the boroughs do have a sliding scale, so they'll have one figure for a first offence, and then they'll put a higher amount if somebody's caught subsequently. As I say, my own experience is that we don't seem to have had any or many of those, but that's certainly another option, to ramp things up prior to getting to the point where we would prosecute. As I say, I'm certainly keen that we get strike a balance between, you know, getting a suitable amount of revenue in that will actually make people think twice about fly tipping. And I think I'll let Ian talk about the lay-by, because that's slightly...
Yeah, so the lay-by on the A41, I think we all know it well. There were two. We persuaded the County Council to close up one. They were reluctant to close up the one on the other side. So in the absence of that, we bunded up the bank around to stop fly tipping going further across. I went past it the other day, and it doesn't look fantastically beautiful. There's not a lot on the A41 that does, but I need to review that again with the County Council. It's experimental. We're trying different things, and you know, if we knew if we left it as it was, it would continue to be significantly fly tipped. I would say I think it's better than it was, but there's more to be done there, and I'm as I say, having active conversations with colleagues at County about that at the moment.
I think if I can just come back on that, it's definitely better than it was. But what I'm noticing is it's like a magnet for other people. So as you drive along there, you've got that very obvious few bits on that lay-by, and then all the way along the verge, there's a washing machine dumped here and a fridge dumped here and a pile of stuff done. So it's like little deposits all the way along. You know, it just encourages other people to come and do it.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely. And actually, even on the other side of the road, now some of the undergrowth has died back just because it's that time of year. There's a lot of other stuff that's become visible, which I spotted as I was going there the other day. So yes, we're trying.
Thank you very much. I don't believe there's any further questions. So is the committee happy to note the service review? Brilliant, thank you. And we'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the forward planning programme and committee work programme. And it's to consider the attached forward planning programme and identify any possible issues for scrutiny, to consider the committee's work programme and requirements for officer and or portfolio holder to attend. Does anyone have any questions regarding that? It's pages 37 to 46. No. In that case, is everyone happy to note the committee work programme? Brilliant. And we'll move to agenda item 8, which is any other business that the chair considers urgent. I can confirm there is none. Agenda item 9 is dates of future meetings. The annual budget scrutiny session is going to be held here on the 26th of January, 2026. This is technically a meeting for the Policy Review Committee, but members of this committee are also invited and welcome to attend and contribute. The next meeting actually of this committee is going to take place the following week, which is on the 4th of February 2026. I can confirm this meeting closed at 20:07. Thank you.